Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. Call hello, Yahweh. Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Kakudash. Once again, double honors go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders, the great millstone. Salutations to the fellow Akim out on the highways and byways, across the four corners of this earth, pushing this truth in all honesty and sincerity, while trying to wake up the remaining, hopefully, like, listen, now I'm on the DC camp. And hey, it's a common theme because, hey, I was just looking at the news, and they're still mourning this what do they call Lizzie in a box. I think in Ireland they were saying that. Uh, you know, a 4.1 mile line still. All right, and it is 11:33 tonight. I'm in D.C. All right, 27 more minutes left in Thursday here. So, as you can see here, this is from the Guardian. Uh, and as I read this, you're probably, as I am, wondering, or that leaves no doubt why these Edomites are promised no mercy, will be promised no mercy. Anyway, it says, this is a Britain that has lost its queen and the luxury of denial about its past, because it has been in denial. All right. They put this, and she was the figurehead of this. She was there to ensure the citizens of Britain and Wales, and it was a lot of animosity with the Irish so-called there. Then there's a Scottish thing. She was pretty much there to hold things together. But at the same time, this colonialism was a thorn in their side. This is something they didn't want people to pay particular attention to. But how do you expect? Well, let's just get into the article. It says, it goes on to say, this is a picture of her and that devil she was married to, Prince Philip. It goes on to say, this will be remembered as a watershed moment in British history for two reasons. First, for the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Second, for what happened next. The voices of those colonized in the name of the British Crown being heard, not as a fringe, exceptional view, but as a clamoring chorus of global trauma. All right. See, these voices, because the time is coming to a time where the Most High is bringing these people down. I'm talking about the Edomites, people that refer to themselves as white. All right. But their biblical nationality is Edom, which in itself means red. They're red. They're not white. They didn't start calling themselves white until the 1680s. All right, or thereabouts. All right, and this is fact. Look it up. All right. So there's no such thing as a white person, and there's damn sure no such thing as a black person. There's no person walking around the color of the back of this phone right here. So, I mean, and you have to thank the so-called educated amongst us for the last 50 or 60 years now from harping on that bullshit-ass point. All right. You're black. With James Brown. I'm black and I'm proud. Okay. Well, Anyway, let's continue. He said, I had prepared for this moment as a time when I would not be free. I have no idea how I actually feel about the passing of Queen Elizabeth, the only British monarch I have known in my lifetime, because for all my life, deference and admiration have been drilled into me as mandatory. I had expected that those of us minoritized in Britain would understand that this is a test of our loyalty, patriotism, and good immigrant status. We would therefore fall into two categories: those who sought to pass the test by enthusiastically towing the line of national mourning, and those too conscious of the harm Britain's power has caused who would stay silent. But it turns out that tone policing is no longer tenable. Social media have been saturated by the harrowing memories of a legacy the British establishment has refused to acknowledge. And this brings to the forefront something I said in my last video. The people, and it happens here too, when you get immigrants, they're expected to be so thankful And I remember doing a video a few months back about the relationship between so-called blacks in the South and Moabites, Chinese. The Chinese, and they understood this, they were expected to what? Maintain the status quo, and that was something like, you know, this is something that Edom entrusted them to do. Stay away from those niggers. And you're not as low as them. In fact, anybody that comes over here is expected to not be as low as us. Okay, that's the game. This is, we always refer to Psalms 83rd chapter, and that is the very definition of a conspiracy. Of course, going back to the curses. All right, this is for those of us that understand what's going on. We're under the curses, but it no less it still hurts, and this is something that it explains the psychological damage done to our people. But you have these same immigrants, I'm talking about America now, that they come over here, and that's part of curses too. They get up over us, and they start to take on the mindset of the oppressor. All right, like goddamn, we catch it from all sides. And there was a young lady that did a video on was it TikTok? Yeah, I believe it was TikTok. She said, "What did black people do to deserve all this from everybody? Not just one nation, two, but everybody." And she brought up our plight and everything, and it's like, well, for one, it's, you might want to flip that around. It's what we didn't do. All right, we're the ones that turned our back on the Most High and His laws, statutes, and commandments. But that's a separate video. But the same thing goes. This is why we're suffering this. Continuing on with this, it says, the plunder of land and diamonds in South Africa, crimes that adorn the Queen's very crown. The one they had on the top of her coffin as they were being led in the parade. It says, the physical suffering that continues from violence inflicted by her government in Kenya, even as her reign was celebrated for having begun there, the scars of genocide in Nigeria, events that took place a decade into her rule. So she was on the throne when all this happened, all right? In Britain, minoritized people are remembering this Elizabethan era through the lens of the racism that was allowed to thrive during it. Shooting the messenger, the radio host and former footballer Trevor Sinclair was quickly hung, drawn, and quartered for voicing his perspective. All right, has failed to quell the tide of global truth-telling. And this is another thing. They fear the truth, but the truth is out. The internet has been such a tool for the truth coming out on these devils. They can't contain it. So you can expect sometime in the very near future, we always bring out Amos 8:11. In fact, let's get that real quick, because this is something that's going to come to bear, because, hey, this word has been tearing them a new one. Behold, the days come, saith the Most High Yahweh, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Most High. And it's coming, so you know what? Since we're on that tip, for all you scoffers out there, for all of you that, fan the hand, and, you Ezekiel 33 and 31 and 32, verse 31 and 32, mother effers, hey, you got to answer for that, all right? It says, but there's, wait a minute, hold on. It says, the burdensome task of truth-telling to a hostile Britain, more used to hearing that its past is glorious, all right, has always fallen unequally on the descendants of empire. Yet, as I write, our stories are continuing to be erased. During her reign, the BBC tells us, colonies gained independence, but there's no mention of those who were in prison, shot and killed in the struggles, from the Gold Coast to Cyprus, India, and Malaya, that were required to win it. Now, what does that remind you? Let me continue. This trauma is not recalled with a single voice. One of the effects of the empire that Queen Elizabeth personified is that it is unevenly remembered within our communities. People who were enslaved were taught that their assimilation into the culturally superior empire was a form of advancement. Yeah, we saved you. You were swinging from trees. You were walking around in the jungle. Your monkeys and all that. Yeah. So their uh, excuse, their uh, message is that, well, we saved you. We civilized you. Bullshit like that. It says families such as mine in Ghana experienced the violence of colonialism and were then educated to believe it was justified. And I have heard out of Jake's own mouth over the years, I have heard it come out of their mouth, say they were grateful that the white man civilized them and brought them from Africa. I kid you not. But what does this remind you of? Let's get some more scriptures. This is, hold on. Let's see. This is, let's go to Habakkuk 2, straight to the point. It says, thou art filled with shame for glory. She just said that like a couple paragraphs up. They didn't want to remember the bad times, just the good. This is the glory of the British Empire. And after all, what was one of the quotes about the British Empire? It says the sun never sets on the British Empire. What does that remind you of? Psalms 49:11. Let's get that real quick. I'll come back to this. And this is Esau in a nutshell. No matter where he is, this is what they think. This is Psalms 49, verse 11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. Victoria Falls, Lake Victoria, all shit like that, You look on a map, and you see this is what they've done all over the world. All right, name the lands and other various landmarks after them. All right, in other countries. This is to remind you that who's in rulership. All right, when you look. It says, I will never forget visiting Independence Arch in Ghana. This was the nation proud to have been the first black African people, so-called, to successfully break free from empire, and here was the physical focal point of that freedom, an archway bearing a symbolic black star. When I looked inside, I found a reality check, a plaque dedicated this freedom to none other than Queen Elizabeth II. How about that? I understood it as a lesson that even in our freedom, we are not free. We are expected to be grateful for having been colonized, just like I said earlier, right? We are racialized and then expected to prove that racism exists. And that's called, you understand what gaslighting is? It's called racial gaslight. All right. There you all have a white person, if you've ever seen it, you might have seen it on TV or some other way, and said, oh, well, John, it could be you were still in Africa or somewhere else, and this is the greatest country in the world. Can't be that bad. Shit like that. That's known as racial gaslighting. It says, even as black British people continue to die at the hands of the state, such as the unarmed Chris Kaba, news of the black community's mourning is obscured by the more important story of royal mourning. To the extent that it's ever acknowledged that Black Lives Matter, now is certainly not the time. Yeah, you just hold off on that. We got something more important here. The Queen Mom, she's passed away, and everybody's saying, well, fuck the Queen Mom. It says, yet, I sympathize with those who feel the Queen's loss. Under her reign, many latched on to the stabilizing sense of cultural continuity. To lose that is to feel disrupted and uncertain. Well, how do you think we feel? It says, for me, it's a familiar anxiety. Britain's empire, by definition, withdrew boundaries and swept aside generations of tradition. Our parents and grandparents were recruited to Britain for its benefit, the terms and conditions of which my generation are still trying to make sense. We know how it feels to lack cultural continuity. Others in Britain enjoyed it at our expense. And it's the same thing over here across the pond, as they say in America. Everyone's enjoying this shit, this so-called, that's supposed to be a free country. No. But at whose expense? All right, they get these loans and everything, because of redlining. In other practices, uh, we were denied building generational wealth, and that was done on purpose. And yet others come over here and they enjoy these things, and that's part of the curse. That's Deuteronomy 28:45 through 48. All right? It's that if continuity is an abstract subject, the other trappings of royal symbolism are more concrete. There were pompous reflections last week with the idea expressed in the economist's obituary that the Queen came from good Hanoverian blood. If that sounds like a white supremacist idea, that's because it is. When I'm attacked for applying reason to what is obviously an emotional situation, one of the allegations will be that I dare speak of race when the real oppressor is class. And yet, here we come to the other mainstay of royal ideology. The Queen was the class system personified. Her role, and that of the king who succeeds her, is to sit at the apex of a class system in a hierarchy anointed by the Most High. In some cases, it's hard to distinguish this from the idea that she was indeed a god herself. The British tabloids began seeing her omnipresence in rainbows, an old lady with a hat shaped clouds, hovering benignly over the land. Damn. Change has come, but the systems of race and class that delineate our destinies remain. The genius of our monarchy is that it transformed people who have the most to gain from dismantling those systems into passionate subjects of the crown. In other words, they don't give a shit, and they are going to go kicking and screaming, all right, before anything is going to be changed. And this is worldwide, because we're talking about a world system here, all right. As it says in Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked, and they are the wicked. And you read Malachi 1st chapter, verses 1 through 4, the point being in 4. He goes on to say, if it were possible to set all of this to one side, maybe I would like to mourn the Queen, the hard-working old lady who has been the symbol of my country for even my parents' entire lives. But I can't separate her from a reign that refused to acknowledge this reality, let alone attempt to change it. Nor do I get to opt out of the emotional labor of processing the memories that other British people refuse to acknowledge, like they do over here. They don't want to hear about the harm they've caused. No, they say, fuck you. Until now, I mean, when you remember what Colin Kaepernick, I'll use that as an example. All he did was bend the knee and say, he was protesting, police brutality and, other things. Oh, man, the fucking hatred that came out. They even had a motherfucking jerseys. They had, what's his name? Marshawn Lynch's jersey, and on the back, it just says Lynch. And then they had Colin Kaepernick beside it, and you read it, it says Lynch Kaepernick. All right. So I mean, shit like that, it's just, and all the guy did was peacefully protest and just bring to the forefront and to the attention of, but they didn't want to do that, nigger, play that game. I just want to, on Sunday or whatever day, I don't want to hear I don't want to hear about what's happening to you. Fuck you. You get paid to play football, basketball, baseball, whatever have you. We don't want to hear that other shit. So, hey, but the tide is turning, and we know these curses that were on us are being transferred, to our enemy. And this is one of the verses for that. This is, let me get it here in Deuteronomy 30. Whoops, hold on. This is Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 7. It says, and the Most High Yahweh with thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies. Because, I've said, Deuteronomy 28, all right? And on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. All right. And who do you think that's talking about? All right. Talking about these so-called white people, the nation of Edom. It says, nor do I get, let's see. Oh, it says, last week, Britain lost the luxury of long-lasting denial at the same time as it lost its queen. You can't say it any better than that. So, that security, I guess in a way she was like a security blanket for them. Now this change Because hey, I'm telling you right now, you can look at uh, King Charles, her son. Then you got Prince Andrew. He was just involved in that um, oh shit, Epstein. That island he had with the pedophiles and all that shit. And he just came out with this long ass list of motherfucking celebrities and shit that. And they say they have videos. So it remains to be seen if anything is going to come out. They're doing an awful lot to try to protect these motherfuckers that were involved in that shit. You don't hear too much of that anymore. But as for this, yeah, that she was a reminder, a symbol of sorts. And now that she's gone, uncertainty. All right. So hey, with that, once again, this has been from The Guardian. This article. This is a Britain that has lost its queen and the luxury of denial about its past. All right, all this is coming to the forefront. Everybody's seeing their shame. Let's get. I said I was going to close out with that, but let's get this too, because this is an important one. This is exactly what's happening. This is Isaiah 25:7. And you read the top, it says, the Most High will swallow up death forever. Come down here, verse 7. It says, and he will destroy in his mountain, in this mountain, the face of the covering cast over all people. Everybody, they looked at Edom, the so-called white man. He had demigod, he enjoyed demigod status in the world, Whatever he said, whatever he did, oh man, it was righteous. All time, he's the most wicked motherfucker that ever walked there. It says, and he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people. That was that covering. And the veil that is spread over all nations. All right. Hey, so with that, I hope whoever views this, of course, is edified. As we like to do here at Great Millstone, we filter things through the scriptures, events. All right. And this, if you're paying close attention, all right, this should give you a sense of the urgency as far as time, because time grows short. So here's the thing. You have to pray. You have to keep praying. Pray without ceasing, as the scriptures say. All right? Because I'm telling you, the bottom's going to drop out of this bitch at any time. So you don't want to be on the fence, or, worse, when you go to Sirach 5:4-7. All right? Keep saying that, oh, everything's going to be all right. We still got time. Oh, no. In fact, whoop. Here we go again. I did it again. This is Sirach. Go to 5:4. It says, say not, I have sinned, and what harm hath happened unto me? For the Lord is long suffering. He will no wise let thee go. Concerning propitiation, be not without fear to add sin unto sin. And say not, his mercy is great. He will be pacified for the multitude of my sins. For mercy and wrath come from him, and his indignation resteth upon sinners. The point, verse 7, make no tarrying to turn to the Most High, and put not off from day to day, for suddenly shall the wrath of the Most High come forth, and in thy security thou shalt be destroyed and perish in the day of vengeance, because all this shit is going to be burned up, all right? Everything, like it says, when this falls apart, and them nukes fall, you ain't going to be, you're not going to be able to tell where New York ends and Connecticut starts and Pennsylvania, all that shit, because all this shit's going to be blown to hell. Hey, so with that, until the next video, shalom.